He's the best ever. That's what the world called Muhammad Ali. But even the greatest fighter who ever lived had to face men who pushed him to his absolute limit. 3 men tested Ali in ways no one else could. 3 men who made him dig deeper than he ever thought possible. These weren't just opponents. They were the mountains Ali had to climb to prove he really was the greatest. Joe Frazier was the first mountain, a relentless warrior with a left hook like a sledgehammer. Ali called their third fight the Thrilla in Manila, the closest thing to dying he ever felt. That wasn't just talk. That was truth spoken from a place of pure exhaustion and pain. Their rivalry started years earlier in 1971. Ali had been away from boxing for 3.5 years. He refused to fight in Vietnam. He gave up his prime years standing on principle. When he came back, Joe Frazier was waiting. Frazier was the champion now, undefeated, powerful, hungry to prove he was the real king. They called it the fight of the century. The whole world watched. Ali danced and moved like always, but Frazier kept coming. He never stopped. He walked through punches that would drop other men. He absorbed pain like it was nothing. Ali described Frazier as being like a machine that couldn't be shut off. In the 15th round, Frazier landed his famous left hook. Ali went down. It was one of boxing's most iconic moments. The man who floated like a butterfly was on the canvas. Frazier won that night. He handed Ali his first professional loss, but that was just the beginning of their war. They fought again in 1974. Ali won that time by decision. It was tactical, less brutal than their first meeting, but it set the stage for something even more savage. October 1975, Manila, Philippines. The heat was unbearable. The ring felt like an oven. What happened that day went beyond boxing. It became a test of human endurance itself. Both men battered each other for 14 rounds. Ali landed combinations that would have finished anyone else. Frazier kept walking forward, throwing hooks that thudded into Ali's body and head. The crowd watched 2 warriors destroy each other round by round. After the 14th round, Ali slumped in his corner. He told his trainer Angelo Dundee to cut his gloves off. He was ready to quit. His body had nothing left. Across the ring, Frazier's trainer Eddie Futch was stopping the fight too. Frazier was half blind from swelling. His face was a mess of bruises and cuts. Ali won because Frazier couldn't answer the bell for the 15th round. But Ali later admitted something stunning. Frazier quit just before he did. Ali didn't think he could fight anymore either. Both men reached their absolute limit at the exact same moment. The brutality of Manila came from more than just punches. It came from hatred. Ali had said cruel things about Frazier during their rivalry. He called him ugly. He called him a gorilla. He dismissed him as an Uncle Tom. These insults cut deep because Frazier had actually helped Ali. He'd even lent Ali money during his exile. Frazier felt betrayed. The anger fueled him. It made him fight with a fury that was almost supernatural. In Manila, that rage nearly broke Ali completely. But something changed after Manila. The hatred cooled. Respect grew in its place. After Frazier died in 2011, Ali said the world lost a great champion. He said he'd always remember Joe with respect and admiration. Maybe Ali's best words about Frazier came years earlier. He apologized for making Frazier angry. Then he said if God ever called him to a holy war, he'd want Joe Frazier fighting beside him. That was the ultimate praise. The man who nearly killed him in the ring was the man he'd want next to him in any battle. Joe Frazier tested Ali's will. He made Ali discover courage he didn't know he had. Frazier pushed him to the edge of death and made him look into that darkness. That's what made Frazier one of Ali's 3 toughest opponents. The Frazier rivalry showed boxing at its most primal. 2 men who genuinely disliked each other fighting with everything they had. Not for money or glory alone, but to prove something deeper. Frazier wanted to prove he deserved respect. Ali wanted to prove he was still the greatest despite the years he'd lost. What made their battles so memorable was how evenly matched they were. Frazier won 1, Ali won 2. But all 3 fights were wars. All 3 fights pushed both men to places most athletes never have to go. The pain they inflicted on each other was legendary. The damage lasted for years after the final bell. Frazier's style was perfectly built to challenge Ali. That constant forward pressure, those devastating body shots, that left hook that came from nowhere and landed like a cannonball. Frazier was willing to take 3 punches to land one, and when his 1 punch landed, it changed the entire fight. Ken Norton was different. Norton was a puzzle Ali never truly solved. The proof comes from Ali's own mouth. He said Kenny's style was too difficult for him. He said he couldn't beat Norton and didn't want to fight him again. Coming from a man who called himself the greatest, this admission was shocking. Norton was Ali's kryptonite, the one fighter whose style just didn't make sense to Ali, no matter how hard he tried to figure it out. Norton was a former Marine, relatively unknown when they first met in 1973, but that night, Norton did something unforgettable. He broke Ali's jaw. Ali, being incredibly tough, finished all 12 rounds despite the injury, but he lost a split decision. Norton won because of how he fought. He wasn't a brawler like Frazier. He wasn't a monster like Foreman. He was a technical puzzle. Norton had a herky-jerky style. He jabbed from below. He crossed his hands for defense in unusual ways. Nothing about his movement was standard. This strange style came from brilliant planning. Norton's trainer was Eddie Futch, the same man who trained Frazier. Futch was a genius at finding tiny flaws in Ali's technique. For Norton, Futch built a master plan. Futch knew Ali was proud of his jab. He also knew Ali wasn't great at parrying jabs coming back at him. So Futch told Norton to out-jab Ali, beat him at his own game, play mind games games with him by taking away his best weapon. It worked perfectly. Norton outlanded Ali by a huge margin. The strategy neutralized everything Ali did best. Ali and Norton fought 3 times total, 39 rounds. Ali won the second and third fights both by decision, but he never looked dominant, not once. The decisions were controversial, especially the third fight. Their final meeting was at Yankee Stadium in 1976. Most people watching thought Norton won. The crowd booed loudly when they announced Ali as the winner. Looking at the punch statistics later, Norton landed way more punches. Many experts still call it a robbery. The Norton trilogy showed something important about Ali's greatness. 2 years earlier in 1974, Ali had pulled off an impossible victory against George Foreman. Everyone considers that his career peak, his moment of genius. Yet 2 years later, he faced Norton and still couldn't find a solution to that awkward style. This proves Norton's technique was actually harder for Ali than Foreman's power. Power could be outsmarted with a brilliant plan, but Norton's weird mechanics were a riddle Ali never fully answered. Even in his prime as champion, Norton remained a mystery. That's why Norton belongs on the list. He tested Ali's technique and adaptability in ways no one else did. He exposed limitations that Ali himself admitted he couldn't overcome. Norton's broken jaw victory became legendary in boxing history. The image of Ali fighting 12 rounds with a fractured jaw showed his toughness, but it also showed Norton's ability to inflict damage that other fighters couldn't. The injury was severe. It required surgery. It changed how Ali approached their next 2 fights. What made Norton so frustrating for Ali was the unpredictability. You could prepare for Frazier's pressure. You could plan for Foreman's power. But Norton's awkward angles and strange timing were impossible to prepare for fully. Every round felt like solving a new puzzle, and Ali never quite found all the answers. George Foreman was the third mountain. He represented a different kind of challenge. He was the most terrifying opponent Ali ever faced. Foreman wasn't just strong. He was a freak of nature with ungodly power. A young, fierce wrecking ball who seemed invincible. The rumble in the jungle in 1974 was Ali's greatest strategic test. The whole world was scared for Ali's health. People genuinely thought Foreman might kill him. This wasn't exaggeration. It was based on what Foreman had done to Ali's other rivals. Foreman had destroyed Joe Frazier, knocked him down 6 times in just 2 rounds. Then he knocked out Ken Norton in 2 rounds. The message was crystal clear. Foreman was better than Frazier and better than Norton. Since Frazier had beaten Ali, the math seemed simple. Foreman would destroy Ali too. There was no logical reason to believe Ali could win. Foreman was younger, stronger, undefeated. His punches felt like getting hit with a sledgehammer. He was a bulldozer, a monster. The public was genuinely terrified Ali would get seriously hurt. Ali's response to this fear was fascinating. He didn't downplay Foreman's power. Instead, he built up his own mythology even bigger. His pre-fight poetry became legendary. He said he'd wrestled with alligators and tussled with a whale. He said he'd handcuffed lightning and thrown thunder in jail. He said he was so mean he made medicine sick. Then he'd pause and say, "Wait till you see Muhammad Ali." The words were part confidence and part self-hypnosis. He was battling the idea of Foreman before he even stepped in the ring. Ali openly acknowledged how hard Foreman hit. He talked about how Foreman destroyed Frazier. By admitting Foreman's power, Ali made his own claims seem even more dramatic. He was building a myth big enough to match the monster. What happened in Zaire became boxing legend, the rope-a-dope strategy. But it wasn't what people think. It wasn't a dope on the ropes getting beaten up. It was an active, intelligent plan born of necessity. Ali was 32 years old. He couldn't dance for 15 rounds against a younger, stronger man. His legs weren't what they used to be, so he used the ropes to absorb Foreman's power. He let the ring ropes take some of the impact. He leaned back and made Foreman reach, which tired him out faster. But Ali did more than just survive. He held Foreman's arms down in the clinch. He talked trash in Foreman's ear. He used his superior conditioning to take Foreman into deep water. Foreman had never been past 8 rounds. Ali made sure he got there. The turning point came in round 7. Foreman hit Ali with a punch that should have ended it. A punch that would have knocked out anyone else. Ali just held him close and whispered, "That all you got, George?" At that moment, the myth of the invincible monster shattered. By round 8, Foreman was exhausted. Ali came off the ropes and knocked him out. The impossible had happened. Ali proved his intelligence and heart were bigger than Foreman's brute force. Unlike the bitter feud with Frazier, Ali and Foreman eventually became close friends. Foreman, who once thought Ali was just another victim, became his greatest admirer. Foreman said Ali was the greatest man, not just the greatest boxer. He said calling Ali the greatest boxer was actually putting him down, because Ali was bigger than boxing. He was bigger than anything. The Foreman fight only lasted 8 rounds. It wasn't as physically brutal as the 14 rounds in Manila, but it belongs on the list of toughest opponents for a specific reason. Foreman represented the combined problem of Frazier and Norton, amplified. He'd solved both of them easily. He'd knocked them both out in 2 rounds. Ali's victory in Zaire was a grand strategic checkmate. He proved his brain could defeat the strongest force of nature in boxing. He showed that intelligence and courage could overcome power that seemed unstoppable. These 3 men shared something important. They all had connections to trainer Eddie Futch. Futch was the man who solved Ali. He trained 4 of the 5 men who ever defeated Muhammad Ali. His 2 greatest works of art were Joe Frazier and Ken Norton. For Frazier, Futch Futch spotted a tiny flaw. He noticed Ali carried his right hand too wide. He saw Ali had a tendency to loop his right hand low when throwing an uppercut. Futch told Frazier to throw his devastating left hook over that uppercut. This exact move caused the knockdown in the fight of the century. For Norton, Futch used a completely different approach. It was psychological. He knew Ali was proud of his jab, so Futch's master plan was to have Norton out-jab Ali. This played mind games with Ali. It neutralized his greatest weapon and provided the foundation for Norton's unusual but effective style. Think about this. In 80 rounds during Ali's prime, he was essentially fighting the same strategic mind. 41 rounds against Frazier, 39 rounds against Norton. Ali spent 10 years in a chess match against a single mastermind who had custom-built two different Ali beaters. The fact that Ali won most of those fights shows his adaptability and greatness. He was fighting not just the men in front of him, but the brilliant strategy behind them. Other fighters gave Ali trouble. Sonny Liston was the man Ali shocked in 1964. Ali was an 8-1 underdog. The victory shook up the world, but Liston was past his prime. The rivalry is covered in controversy. The second fight ended with a phantom punch nobody really saw land. Oscar Bonavena gave Ali a brutal test in 1970. Ali even said at the time it was the toughest fight he'd ever had. Bonavena hit him with hooks harder than Frazier could throw. It was a necessary test that proved Ali could still take punishment, but it was a prelude to the Frazier Wars, not the war itself. Doug Jones gave the young Cassius Clay trouble in 1963. He rocked Clay and made him look like a novice, but it was an early scare, not a career-defining battle. Larry Holmes beat Ali in 1980, but that fight was a tragedy, not a contest. Ali was shot. His skills were gone. Holmes was so dominant he actually begged the referee to stop it. That fight measures Ali's heartbreaking decline, not Holmes's toughness against a prime Ali. The three toughest opponents were Frazier, Norton, and Foreman. Each represented a unique, supreme challenge. Each tested a different essential part of Ali's greatness. Joe Frazier tested his will and endurance. Frazier pushed Ali to the absolute edge of death. He forced Ali to find courage he never knew existed inside him. Manila was a spiritual and moral reckoning, as much as a physical one. Ken Norton tested his technique and adaptability. Norton was the riddle Ali admitted he couldn't solve. The style that remained kryptonite even when Ali was champion. The awkward mechanics that exposed limitations Ali himself acknowledged. George Foreman tested his intellect and courage. Foreman was the terrifying force who had crushed Ali's other rivals. He forced Ali to invent a strategy that defined genius. He made Ali prove that brains could beat brawn. These three men didn't just fight Ali, they revealed him. They forced him to discover three different versions of his own greatness. In defeating them or surviving them, Ali showed the world what being the greatest really meant. The story of Ali's toughest opponents is really the story of Ali himself. It's about will discovered through suffering, technique tested by confusion, intelligence proven through fear. These three fighters didn't diminish Ali's legacy, they created it. Looking back at Ali's career, you see a man who faced every possible challenge boxing could offer. Physical warriors who wanted to break his body, technical masters who wanted to outsmart him, powerful punchers who wanted to destroy him. He faced them all, and through those battles he became something more than just a fighter. Ali called himself the greatest, but it was these three men who helped make him that.